Welcome back to Non-Viral News with Bob Sterry. Dateline November 20th, 2024. Non-Viral News, where we report the dull, the inconsequential and mostly irrelevant news, small, unalarming factoids from around the world that you are unlikely to share and can ignore with complete confidence. Our correspondent covering the literary arts scene is reporting wild scenes at the recent Oxford Comma Conference, where physical violence almost broke out between groups claiming ambiguity is reduced by the comma and those claiming the opposite. Outside the conference centre, a small but loud group of protesters aligned with neither faction were demanding double spacing after periods. An even smaller group, campaigning for longer paragraph indents, somehow lost their way to the conference centre and were last seen shouting at some colonoscopists who were equally disorientated. Our staff literary critic, Alex Fenquill, has just received an advance copy of a new bodice buster novel by the not as famous as he would like, Quentin Diamante, and is bursting his Y-fronts to read a selection from one of its early chapters.
Hello, I'm Alex Fenquill, and I would like to read you a few pages from the latest, utterly thrilling romance novel, Quivering Thighs, by that doyen of the genre, Quentin Diamante. In this scene, Lady Jocelyn Mountme is engaging in light-hearted repartee with Sir John Thruster, who has recently returned from a long voyage to the Americas. "Why, Sir John, do tell me more about the half-naked noble savages," she queried, fluttering her eyelids and adjusting her décolletage for greater effect as she reclined upon a chaise longue, her pretty pink tongue flickering lightly over a sherbet.
"Indeed I will, dear lady,"
he replied, his engraved codpiece catching the late afternoon sun as it poured over his loins in a golden cascade. "Were they very savage? Were they brutal? Were they as handsome as, say, yourself?" she pressed, her eyes drawn to the cascading sunlight.
"You flatter, my lady, but they were indeed handsome brutes and well constructed in every department," he informed.
Lady Jocelyn took this moment to make further adjustments to her décolletage. As she did so, the skirts and several petticoats of her gown briefly rose off the chaise longue to afford Sir John an alluring glimpse of one of her garters. He flushed deeply. "In all departments, Sir John?" she pressed again, noting his involuntary coloration.
"Assuredly, my lady, as you may well imagine, it is hard for a half-naked savage to conceal his frame and what it carries," he said, his flush descending to his codpiece, where the engravings did nothing to attenuate a growing discomfort. Lady Jocelyn chose this moment to upset her sherbet liberally over her décolletage, and with a voice usually reserved for one purpose only, simpered, "Dear Sir John, would you be so kind as to allow me the use of your cravat? I seem to have spilt my sherbet." As she uttered these words, she opened her eyes as wide as possible and held out one hand to him. In a trice, he was kneeling at her side, unravelling his silken cravat, and as he gazed at the shadowy valley, now almost at his nose, again reflected that in the choice of codpieces, size really does matter for all-round comfort. He handed his cravat to Lady Jocelyn, who with her other hand
abruptly pulled his handsome head down into that valley. As the sharpening intakes of her breath filled his ears, the sweet acidic taste of sherbet combined with a bewitching fragrance, and yet another painful acknowledgement that in the matter of codpieces, correct sizing for any eventuality really is critical. And of course, we all know what happens next. This has been Alex Fenquill reading from Quivering Thighs by Quentin Diamante. Tune in again for more readings.
This has been Non-Viral News with Bob Sterry. Tune in, log on, click here, or whatever it is that you do for our next broadcast.